Gladiators are fighters who are developed as a trade, as a business, to serve this new sport of human sacrifice at funerals. There were different sorts of gladiators, basically divided into two categories. There were the paramulari, who had little round shields, and they were light-armed gladiators, and the scutari, who had big, huge, heavy shields. Then there's another light-armed gladiator who's called a retiarius. The retiarius has nothing but a net and a big long trident, and he is one of the light-armed gladiators who is supposed to dance around a heavier armed gladiator. He often fights against one called a murmillo, who in the parade before the actual fighting wore a helmet with a big fish on the top. Then he would wear a smoother helmet for the actual fighting so that the net wouldn't catch on his helmet. So the murmillo was another favorite category of gladiators. There were different ways of fighting. Also, you could fight on horseback, and those are the andabati, who would go into the arena with a blindfold on themselves and on the horse, and they would just go at each other, whacking right and left and waiting to see which bit they chopped off the other opposing fighter. So there were many, many different forms of gladiator.
Basic sorts were the heavily armed and the lightly armed gladiator. And the lightly armed gladiator had the advantage of speed and mobility, and the heavily armed gladiator had the advantage of impregnability. He was much more difficult to get at. And so the different types of weaponry determined the different maneuvers and fighting style of the gladiators. And they would also obviously be the kind of thing that one could become a real aficionado about if one were a spectator. One could really know absolutely down to the last detail how a particular gladiator could or should block certain maneuvers. And it would be rather like being really up in golf and knowing every type of golf swing that you could possibly ever employ in any given situation.